There's a certain joy to being small in a big world. Take Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, or A Bug's Life, or It Takes Two, or Tinykin, or probably Short People by Randy Newman. I haven't seen the music video, but I'm guessing it's inspired by It Takes Two. Of course, being little in a big world isn't everything, but Pikmin takes this and much, much more and turns it into a one-of-a-kind recipe for good old goodness. So the question is, why is Pikmin so good? Let's talk about it. Also, that level from Mario 64, Tiny Big World, where you're tiny but the world's big, or you're big and the world is tiny. Man, you guys eat that stuff up. All right, let's start with the basics. First, I should note that I'm not going to get deep into the lore and background of the Pikmin series. We're just talking about what makes the series so beloved, partly so you can decide whether to play it yourself, or because we all like hearing people say nice things about things we already like. So, there are 4 mainline Pikmin games, one of which is just about to release at the time of this video, and one spin-off that I haven't played and I hear we don't talk about. It's the Voldemort of Pikmin games. Every franchise needs one. In all 4 Pikmin games, yes, I'm legitimately ignoring Hey Pikmin in this video, the protagonist is a spaceman from one of several planets. Hockatate, Koppai, Karut, Gia, Schmeepschmorp, Gleekflorp, and so on. And they've traveled to the planet PNF 404 to make discoveries, bring home treasure, save another explorer, and, any number of other reasons. It kind of depends on the game. But the key appeal of this setup from a gameplay perspective is that your little astronaut guy or gal is pequeño, and the rest of the world around you is muy, muy grandissimo. This all started because Mario's dad, no, not him, this dad, was out gardening, looked down at some ants doing all sorts of something, and probably had a real-life Magic School Bus experience that he refuses to tell us directly about, and decided, it would be nice if we would be able to see a bunch of small creatures doing something. That's his actual quote, for what it's worth. In function, Pikmin is a real-time strategy game with an extremely approachable coat of paint on it. Whereas most RTSs, Age of Empires, StarCraft, etc., simulate war and atrocities on a grandiose macro scale, Pikmin depict war and atrocities that you'd need binoculars to really appreciate. We'll get to that. This element of being a strategy game most likely is both the thing that Pikmin has most going against it in terms of widespread appeal, but also is one of the things that most makes its fans love it. It would be easy enough to take this same looking game and turn it into a puzzle platformer, which they tried to do with Hey Pikmin and failed, and separately, Tinykin basically succeeded at. We'll get to that later. But its gameplay loop is so unique that very few other games have even tried to emulate it. So let's talk gameplay loop. The core principles were set up in Pikmin 1 and have only been built upon, so we'll start with those. In that game, you control your little spaceman, Olimar, and quickly meet little colorful plant aliens called Pikmin. The Pikmin follow you as you are their one true leader, commander, and sometimes, to all of our dismay, executioner. A Pikmin can be thrown to pick up certain items and bring them back to their onion, a small, spaceship-like pod that takes various items and turns them into new Pikmin. Again, I'm sure there's lore behind how this is possible, but to achieve good sleep tonight, I'm not gonna look it up. A lot of items are too heavy for just one Pikmin, so if it says 5 over it, then you need to throw 5 Pikmin to pick it up, bring it back to the onion or your ship, and do whatever that item needs to do. Some of them make more Pikmin, some of them are collectibles, etc., etc. And hey, remember all the atrocities I mentioned before? Well, that's because this big world for your little self is filled with other little things that are coincidentally usually bigger than you are. And you've got, little arms or whatever, can't fashion a weapon even though you can do space travel, and you make the Pikmin do it, okay? You make the Pikmin fight your battles. Maybe you're a coward, maybe it's a power chip, maybe they just want to. I don't know. As enemies attack you, you throw your Pikmin, they fight, and hopefully they all come out unscathed. As the game progresses, and increasingly in each release, enemies boast interesting and more unique mechanics by which you defeat them. Fighting them, I think, has a lot in common with a traditional Zelda boss. While some can just be lambasted, others may have a protective shell that you need to find their weak spot, or use a particular color Pikmin. We quickly notice that there are many colors of Pikmin. In Pikmin 1, there were 3, red, blue, and yellow. And in each game since, they've added 2 more types to mix, meaning that in Pikmin 4, we're now up to 9 different kinds of Pikmin. And these varieties aren't purely aesthetic, but they each serve a different key function. Red Pikmin are immune to fire, because red. Blue Pikmin are immune to water, because blue. Others drown. Please don't let them drown. They will haunt your dreams if they drown. Yellow Pikmin conduct electricity and can pick up bombs, and then in later games they added white Pikmin that poison, purple Pikmin who are strong, winged Pikmin who fly, rock Pikmin who do more damage and break glass, ice Pikmin who freeze enemies in water, and glow Pikmin who only come out at night and are kinda spooky. As you can surely imagine, this all leads to a really interesting and slowly expanding world with more puzzles and obstacles to overcome as you become more familiar with the new Pikmin types you discover one by one. To take a quick break from talking about mechanics, I'll also just throw this in the mix. The Pikmin are adorable and hilarious. As seen in the Pikmin short films, there's a great amount of humor that can be pulled off with these little guys, and that plays into the games here and there as well. Additionally, there's a great organic storytelling that occurs when mishaps happen, like accidentally drowning all of your non-blue Pikmin because you hadn't realized they die to water. Just, make sure to reload your last save so you're not committing such a horrendous act without, at least a little bit of remorse. Alright, let's continue with some of the core gameplay mechanics that make this series beloved, divisive as this one may be. Time. There are a lot of games that deal with time as a resource and are beloved. For example, Animal Crossing, where your day is the game's day. Unless you're a dirty, rotten cheater and are okay destroying the space-time continuum to get your mail a little bit earlier. Or on the other end of the spectrum, Stardew Valley, a widely beloved farming sim where time passes within the game at a fixed rate and there are consequences to not finishing your task for the day before nightfall. Pikmin falls into this time mechanic. While you're throwing your yellow Pikmin at light bulbs, or rock Pikmin at vases, or whatever, the day is progressing. However, while this mechanic has existed since the beginning, it's become less and less stressful, to be honest. In Pikmin 1, you have 30 days to complete your main objectives. So especially when you're first getting a hang of it, each day feels like it needs to be adequately productive to not be wasting a whole day. In Pikmin 2, there's not a limit to the number of days that are spent, so that's a lot less stressful. Although there are some who prefer the looming sense of urgency which the first game provides, I am absolutely not that kind of person. And then next, Pikmin 3 introduced fruit, which essentially is your day counter. As long as you have enough reserves of fruit juice, you will not run out of days to keep playing. And to be honest, I was never even close to running out, and I played in quite a relaxed fashion. So vibe-wise, there's barely a limit in that way. The newest game in the series is Pikmin 4, and this one seems to follow 2 and not have a day limit, which is certainly my preference. In any case, this time limit within a day does allow for a nice balance of having somewhat cozy gameplay, but also having to strategize and plan. It's always a fun moment having to rush around right before the end of the day, finish the tasks you're doing, get all the Pikmin that are out there in the field, bring them back to the Onion to make sure that nothing bad happens, because if any of your Pikmin are left out in the wild by nightfall, they will get eaten up, and they show you a cutscene of it happening, and it's sad and stuff. It seems that this is also true in Pikmin 4, but now there's also the ability to go out at night. However, the exact mechanics of this seem to suggest that your regular Pikmin still have to get home, and you exclusively use glow Pikmin here instead. A favorite unsung feature of mine is when you open up shortcuts. Sometimes this is just within a small area of the map. Maybe you have to take the long way to get somewhere, but then as the day is ending, you find a box that you can push over a ledge that opens up a quick way home. Then the next day, you can use this ramp to get back to that area that you barely got to explore. It feels really reminiscent to shortcuts in a Zelda game or Dark Souls. It's a really nice and fun feeling that each of your small steps are contributing to this bigger sense of wonder and adventure. And speaking of big, the maps in these games have gotten bigger over time, and this has allowed for the introduction of delegating tasks. You may have more than one cadet at any given time, and while you venture forward to one part of the map, you may very well want them to start heading toward another part to start on another task. And once you tell your Pikmin what to do in that one area and they start working on their own, you can switch which officer you have control of, tell the other what to do, and make a lot of efficiencies. I will stop and say this though, this is a Nintendo game. In the same way that Tears of the Kingdom lets you build giant mechs to traverse all of Hyrule, but you can also, ride a horse. The same's true here. The brilliance of Pikmin is in its potential depth rather than its required depth. It's an RTS, but is just super approachable and fun. And in Pikmin 2 and Pikmin 4, it's a ton of fun to stumble into caves. You know how time passes in the game, and sometimes that's a little stressful? Well, it's wonderfully balanced with caves. These are areas that you find in the overworld and then go down into, and they're harder and require more strategy than regular gameplay, more like little dungeons, I guess. But time doesn't pass down there. So this is a way that they found to increase one kind of challenge, but in turn, diminish another kind. To be honest, there's a ton more mechanics that we could go into. In Pikmin 4 specifically, you have a dog, Awachi, who you can level up, and the story seems to be pretty interesting, and you can go inside a house for the first time. There's all sorts of things that make the series fun, but for now, I just wanted to give as straightforward an answer as possible to what makes this series special and why you may want to check it out. Or, reminisce on why you already love it if you do. It's a super fun series, and with Pikmin 4 coming out and looking like the best the series has ever had to offer, it couldn't be a better time to be a Pikmin fan. Before we finish up, I'll give a quick shout out to a game that came out in 2022 as well, Tinykin, which was one of my favorite games of the year. It actually is a 3D platformer that uses the mechanics of Pikmin without some of the strategy that's part of the series' DNA. It's more fast-paced and less stressful, so if some of these aspects sound fun to you but the strategy feels daunting rather than interesting, Tinykin may be a great one to try out. There's a demo for that on the eShop. Also, there's a demo for Pikmin 3, and more importantly, for Pikmin 4. If by the end of the Pikmin 4 demo you feel sold on the game, then I'm very sure that the rest of that title will not disappoint. Like I said, I didn't cover everything there is to know and love about Pikmin, so let me know in the comments, what do you love about the series? And if you haven't played it, do you have any questions about the series? Something that never quite made sense? Ask it in the comments and I'll respond, or you can kick up a conversation with the rest of the community on here as well. And as we're on our way out, let me recommend this video on what makes Golden Sun great. It's a franchise I hold near and dear to my heart and would love for everyone to want it so that Nintendo has incentive. But before you go, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and check out our Patreon to see what we've got going on there. Thanks so much. Peace and blessings.